All right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. So I was starting to work on Aries. That is my Stroker S1000. And the reason why I'm working on it is because if you watch my podcast or watch my most recent video with the EM meet, I got motivated because the smaller guys were trying to pick on the bigger guy. At least that's the way I feel about it, but it's not really a thing. We're all cool. Anyways, this is the bike. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just like kind of go over what's going on with the bike. So for starters, this bike was supposed to be hooked up to Holley EFI. I got a whole box, several $1,000s worth of standalone stuff for this bike. But German engineering, I don't know if and when this will be on a standalone, but I'm tired of sitting and waiting for it. So I figured the bike is here. I'm gonna try to find, because I don't even know where the ECU and the original triple clamp is with the key and all of that. I don't even know where it's at. I'm assuming it's in my shed. But anyways, that's what happened with this bike. So the bike was sitting here for like months and months and months. And as you know, if you watch my channel, I try to do these extravagant, what I call extravagant builds, and they don't really work out as I planned just because they take longer than anticipated. And when I mean longer, I mean probably like, I'm at the point where all of them has been several years. So, but that's neither here nor there. So I'm gonna try to get this bike started on the OEM stuff. Now this is a 2011, but the motor is kind of bastardized. Like it's the best of all the worlds, I guess, of S1000 outside of the K67, all the K46 stuff. The motor was about a little over $13,000, and that's, I mean, it is a 2x4, and I ran it as a 2x4. Didn't want to go 3x4 because, as you can see, it has a bottle on it. So I wanted some meat between the cylinders. So hopefully it can hold some power. The other thing with that is the reason why the motor is so expensive. I mean, everything. I mean, you can see the studs on the outside, but you got to send the whole thing off, get it honed. It's 2 mil over, 4 mil crank. Got to send the crank off. They lighten and balance it and stroke it and do whatever they do. And you got the DME oil pan at the bottom. I mean, it's an expensive build. Now, my thought process was I didn't want to try to run this expensive build on OEM. However, at this point, because the bike has been sitting and I've spent so much money on this doggone bike, I mean, I could have bought two S1000s for the price of what this bike is. If you watch my other video, I stole a lot of parts from what this was supposed to be and put it on Pebbles, which is the bike my wife rides. But I'll go over some of the parts, and so you can kind of understand how expensive but how much of a headache this is. This is Unit 5. I may have taken the video down, but we ran into some issues because this is a prototype. He didn't have anything for BMW. So as you can see, like this, there's no provisions to put the reservoir on to mount it anywhere. So that was an issue. And then the turning radius down here is getting stuck on the frame. Now, technically I could shave the frame down here and then put an aftermarket steering dampener on it. But it's funny because where it's getting hung up is where the steering dampener is, and then I won't be able to run the OEM or an Öhlins or anything up under here. So that wouldn't work. I was trying to get the bike as light as possible. There's a lot of titanium for this bike. Some is already on the bike. Some of, you know, I have this, you know, I have that in titanium. Some is on the bike and some is just kind of sitting in packages because I was just gonna wait and swap the bolts later. I went with an Akrapovic exhaust this time versus the normal Brox or the CT or something like that, just because I wanted it not only to look different, but I wanted it to be black. And as you know, Akrapovic doesn't make black exhaust, so I had a headache. Whereas I had to buy the exhaust, then strip the exhaust, take everything off, Parts for this was back ordered, get everything coated, and then put it all back together, and this is the final product. Now, I was hoping so far that no one that I have seen has a murdered out Akrapovic exhaust, at least on an S1000. The motor was built by Lee Tomlinson. He's here in Tennessee. That's my builder, wirer, Holley EFI guru guy. But he did tell me that this would probably be a headache. What else is going on with the bike? As you can see, it has nitrous. It has an M2 shock on it. The reservoir is right here. I have a mount from One Stop Speed. I'm at the drill and mount it here on the swing arm or something. But yeah, that's that. So that kind of sucked. What else is going on with the bike? The ECU, and let me get back to this triple. This whole steering stem, I mean, I got everything, just like I have this setup on my Sub-Zero Busa. It dropped, it was like 2 pounds or something like that. Like the whole setup was like no more than 2 pounds, which is great for weight reduction. You know, I think that a lot of people overlook the fact that the lower triple clamp in the OEM stem is usually heavier and more robust than the aftermarket stuff. But I mean, it's expensive too. I mean, the one on my Busa drops, I think over 6 pounds, but I mean, it was well over $1,000. So with all the titanium and the grudge stem and all of this stuff. So it definitely costs a lot. This airbox isn't from a 2011. And I think that's about it. I mean, you can see like the carbon fiber and stuff, and then the body work was predominantly carbon fiber. I have Core-Moto wheels on the bike. I went with Core-Moto just because I was gonna go carbon, but I wanted this bike to be like a black and carbon type look. Now though, I'm not so sure because I like how my wife's bike turned out, so I might change things. What else is there? I think really that's about it. Outside of me having to essentially take the whole front end back apart, just once I find the OEM ECU, because I don't even know where the ECU is at, and then obviously the OEM triple N lower clamp and the stem. So, and I probably change the bearings too, because I think I have some different bearings in the stem. So I did order, I mean, you can see the titanium and stuff. I did order a whole nother rotor. I got a Galfer. I was going to put Behringer on this bike and change out the caliper and all of that, but I opted not to just because I pushed those funds towards my 2 Busas, my turbo bike and then my nitrous bike. Outside of that, I think I just addressed the oil leak. I had an oil leak because I had an Alpha Racing drain plug on this DME oil pan, but it was leaking, and right now I don't see anything on my fingers, so I went back to OEM, new crush washer, and so far there's no leak. So rear sets, I went with Voodoo just because I don't see anybody with Voodoo. I'm a Vortex dealer, so initially I was gonna go Vortex, but I opted to go this route just because it was different. And I mean, I like the fact that they have a bracket so I could push it out, because I'm a bigger guy, so I can push my legs out a little bit and my footing. And got the shock, got the tie tail stuff back here. Was gonna go carbon with this, but I know experiences with the H2 stuff, the H2 carbon subframes usually crack or break, and I'm a heavier guy, so I didn't want to do that. So this bike was said to weigh, if I dropped 20 pounds off of the other bike, this bike, as it sat, was supposed to weigh way less than the other bike that's on my videos, Pebbles. The only downside is all of my nitrous stuff that I had for the bike, I sold it. I got it and then I got rid of it because I decided to put this on standalone. Well, obviously, now I'm trying it off standalone, so it's not gonna work itself out like that. And then the tires, you know, I usually do the Pirelli TDs or Q5s, but these tires are brand new. As you can see, they still have nipples on them. And you can see how dusty and dirty the tires is just because this bike just keeps sitting. So ultimately, if you want to do something like this, don't do it, because it just takes, or if you want to do something like this, if I can get this bike started and it runs okay on OEM, at least starts, then I can get a power commander and you know, get the piggybacks and stuff, and then try to do what I was going to do, which adds weight. I don't want to do that, but at this point, again, I'm just kind of, you know what I mean? I'm just tired of things sitting. So, the other thing that I got to take a look at is the oil cooler. So I deleted the oil cooler. A guy out of overseas, he makes the block offs and stuff for it. I might get the DME bypass instead of just getting rid of the oil cooler altogether. I'm not sure. Like I said, this was supposed to be just a race bike, you know? No headlights, no nothing, just strictly a race bike. Something I can ride in the street, take to the strip, whatever, just race. I did not go with a 520 kit for this bike. It is still 525. Most of my bikes have 525s or 530s on it, just because outside of like my stock wheelbase fun stuff, like my road race bike has a 520 kit on it. And the reason why I do that is because one, there's a power out on this bike, and two, I'm a heavy guy. So, you know, when suspension starts buckling and doing the most, like, you know, if you're a heavier guy, I feel like you're gambling if you're running a 520 kit on something that's racing. Now, some can argue and say, well, this is not going from a dig. Yeah, you're right, but it's still the same concept. Like over time, that chain is going to fatigue fairly quick, regardless of tensile strength. Anyways, and then I had you know, if you look at my videos, again, I had like a carbon chain guard and carbon this, carbon that, all this stuff. And that essentially is Aries in a nutshell. I don't know, again, if this thing is gonna run. I don't know how long it's gonna take me to replace the parts that I already got rid of. I might just use the stuff I pulled off my wife's bike if I can get this thing to run and get it tuned. I don't know yet, but this essentially is the build. And I want y'all to subscribe and follow it, because I guess y'all probably watched this video to know what the hell was this supposed to be? What was this supposed to make? Well, a 2x4 S1000 motor, you can Google it, whatever, whatnot. On race gas, it's said to make about 240 to 250 horsepower on motor. Now, that's probably MR12 or something. Now, I'm thinking all motor, M1, M5, you know, M5 is the new hotness these days. So M5, probably 10, 15, maybe even 20 horsepower over that. So now you're looking at a bike that's making 260, 270, potentially 280. Who knows? MRX02 was what I was going to run on the bike. So because of the nitrous, and then you couple that with, I don't know, a 40 shot, 100 shot, whatever the bike, I think the bike will be comfortable with. And now you're sitting at a 300 and some horsepower bike, but the bike weighs less than 400 pounds, and it's a 1000, high revving 1000. So my plan was this bike was supposed to hang with my H2, which currently is a little over 300 horsepower, with me on it versus some small guy on it. That's what all of my builds are about. Well, the 3 race bikes, it's only 3. But we'll see. And everybody knows that the original K46s, the motor was definitely stronger. That's why I picked this platform. The motor was definitely stronger than the K67. But that's usually the case. If you look at Gixxers and everything else, usually the older bikes are stronger than the newer stuff. Now, that's the K46. This is the bike from the previous video. As you can see, there's nitrous on it. And then I do have a K67 here that I could have touched, but I just opted not to. So, at any rate, in a nutshell, I'll probably post videos here and there if I can remember it. And yeah, subscribe, follow, hit the bell. I'll send updates as I receive them. And or I get them, trying to make this thing run. And this definitely reminds me of Boosted Catfish. Shout out to him, because I think he had an S1000. He was looking into the same thing, although I don't think he had a stroker motor in his. So crank isn't billet, but I'm not finding 10 people to spend $4,000. At least that's what I was told by Marine. So that's it. That's the bike. And this bike will be going under the knife because I am changing other things on the bike too, based upon what I did to the other one that you just saw. Like, share, subscribe, follow the build.